Hello friends, today we are going to discuss the syllabus for geography. As we all know that it is one of the most significant components so far as general studies is concerned. I've seen over the years that geography syllabus has got changed after 2013. A new component of geography was added which is called as world geography. The syllabus as defined by UPSC focuses more on the disasters, focuses more on distribution of resources, focuses on industries, distribution pattern of world industries. There is nothing mentioned about Indian geography. But if you see in General Studies paper 3, there are topics mentioned such as cropping pattern of India, irrigation, infrastructures including transport. So what I'll be discussing today is the syllabus for geography, what are the different components of geography that we need to study for general studies, and then the approach that one should follow to understand geography so that we are able to answer questions in exam. So geography syllabus includes first component, that is general geography. The general geography, also called as physical geography. It includes topics such as geomorphology, second, it includes climatology, and third component includes hydrosphere, which is oceanography. Now, if we understand the need for all the three topics here, geomorphology is about the study of lithosphere of Earth. It's more about the explanation of the landforms that are formed, the explanation of processes such as earthquakes, foldings, faulting, tsunamis, and also the erosional processes. So if we briefly understand geomorphology, the topics that are included here are internal structures of Earth, it's a basic topic that is required to understand geomorphology. Then we also have topics like folding, faulting, and very important, the topic of continental drift and the associated theories such as plate tectonics, the processes related to plate tectonics. Apart from that, there is one more topic that we need to cover that includes landforms. We know that there are a lot of processes that take place on the surface of Earth, which include glaciation, rainfall, wind systems. All these processes result in the removal of upper layer of lithosphere, erosion, and it also causes deposition. So accordingly, we have erosional and depositional landforms that we need to discuss in this part of geography, geomorphology. Then the second topic includes climatology. See, what is climate? As per World Meteorological Organization, an average weather condition of a place for about 31 years is called as a climate. So therefore, to understand climate, we must understand what are the components of weather. And how do we define weather? We say the physical state of surrounding, day-to-day changes of surrounding. So what is that physical state exactly? The physical state means the temperature of surrounding, atmospheric pressure, wind system, clouds formation, phenomena like cyclones, anticyclones. When you understand these topics, you understand the weather system of a region. And when you understand the weather system of a region, you also understand topics such as climatic regions. Then we have another topic that is called as oceanography, which is about hydrosphere. And this hydrosphere includes topics such as ocean currents, a very, very important topic. These ocean currents are large circular motions of large movements of water on the surface of ocean that brings a wide change that affects the weather conditions of a place. Then we also have topics such as waves, tides, salinity, temperature, and resources, marine resources. So these are broadly topics that we cover for physical geography or general geography, which includes lithosphere, geomorphology, atmosphere, climatology, hydrosphere, that is in oceanography. And if we sum all these together, that is lithosphere, geomorphology, atmosphere, climatology, and hydrosphere, about oceanography. Now all these three components together form biosphere, and it's about natural conditions. We'll come to this natural conditions and relate it to the human life little later. So this is about the nature that we are studying. And this part of geography, that is physical geography, demands a conceptual understanding. As we cannot understand, we cannot study nature as one unit. We use some techniques, some principles to follow this, to study this. These are generalizations, laws, some concepts which are borrowed from sciences such as some physics, some of them are from biology, and that forms over this first component of geography, which studies nature. Then the second part of geography includes Indian geography. Indian geography. The syllabus, first I'll discuss the syllabus and then we'll briefly discuss all this. First is physiography of India. We see the physical detailing of India. Then the climate of India. Then the drainage system of India. Then fourth would be soils of India. So it's something like the application of all that we study in physical geography in Indian context. Here in this part, in geomorphology, we study formation of fold mountains. And here we study formation of Himalayas. Here we study volcanism. Here we study formation of Deccan Plateau. So on one side we study topics such as plate tectonics, application of that over India. Then we study here in climatology different types of winds, including seasonal winds, and in Indian climate we discuss mainly monsoon, how it originates, what is the effect of monsoon, what are the new models used by Meteorological Department of India to forecast, which includes that recently developed dynamic model to forecast monsoon. Then we also study drainage system and then soils. But mere understanding of drainage system or soils or climate will not be good enough for exam. What we need to focus little more on this, when we study the drainage system of India, we should also be focusing upon, is there the possibility of linking of rivers? What is the feasibility of national water grid? How do we use the water resource of India? And what steps have been taken so far? That is to be discussed. And if the concept is 150-year-old, Arthur Cotton for the first time suggested that Indian rivers should be linked. But then why we have not been able to link these rivers for so long? These are topics that we need to focus in drainage system. But for that, you must understand what are the different rivers in India, what is their drainage pattern, how can they be linked. Then coming to soils, the one part is factual, 8 types of soil as mentioned by Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Second is the problems of soils, the problems that are natural problems of soils, like Indian soils lack nitrogen, all soils of India are deficit in nitrogen. Why is it so? What will be the impact? Then anthropogenic factors that have led to soil problems, such as overuse of fertilizers, unscientific use of fertilizers. So this is another aspect of that we need to discuss in soils. So there will be one part that we need to concentrate upon is the factual part. And the second part that we need to focus upon is the applied part, the application part of this, and relate it to the current events. Then third part of geography includes human geography. Where we study topics such as agriculture, agricultural pattern of India, also some agricultural regions of world. Second, population of India and world. Third, industries, industrial pattern of India and world. Then resources, again India and world. And then another component here is the transport. Now, if you focus this part of geography, the human geography, you'll find that we are focusing more on agriculture, population, industries, which are our human related activities, human centric activities. So this part of geography, that is human geography, is focusing more on man. Now, here we focus in this part of geography, that is the physical and general geography, we focus on nature. But if the spotlight is on man and man-related activities, it is that human geography which is more descriptive in nature. Now, what is that descriptive in nature? We study agriculture of India in detail, also study the problems of India, like for example, cropping pattern of India has changed due to introduction of green revolution. More farmers focused on rice and wheat rather than focusing on millets and oilseeds and others, because it had higher MSPs, the demand was more, and India is the second largest population in the world. So it is very obvious that we'll be focusing more on food grains. But what happened because of that? The cropping pattern of most parts of India, especially the northern part of India, altered. And now, due to more emphasis on these two crops, the productivity of rice and wheat has been declining for last 20 years or so. In 2000, we had a higher productivity of rice compared to the productivity of rice recorded in 2015-16. And so far as the UPSC exam is concerned, it reminds me a question that was asked last year about the changing pattern and declining productivity of rice and wheat. So one account, we focus on the factual part, another is current related aspects such as agricultural, new schemes of agriculture, industries, the new change in agriculture, in industries, sorry, and that too considering the green activism in Western countries, considering the increase in the labor in developing countries, considering the increase in market and paying capacity in developing countries, and what are the effects of these factors on the industrial development of the West. Then if you see the resources, every year we are expecting one question, every year there is one question asked on resources. There are two ways to handle this. One is the factual, resources, and the distribution of resources. The second part is the resources distribution and the problems related to the extraction of such resources. For example, we are talking about shale gas, extraction of shale gas, and the technique that was used in shale gas extraction was called as fracking. This technique used dynamite. We injected dynamite in the rocks, blasted them, and extracted the shale gas which was locked deep inside these hard metamorphic rocks. But because the dynamite was used, it was banned in most parts of the world, including Europe, but has continued to some extent in USA. In 2013, UPSC mains, the question was asked, the problems related to the shale gas extraction. So now, by this time you should understand that what is to be studied and what is the focus so far of examiner. So factual detailing is very important to understand the application part and relate it to the recent events. So now, after the completion of this description on syllabus, we shall discuss what exactly is geography. How do we define geography, and what are the different approaches that we need to follow to get more marks in general studies. So, these are two ends of geography I have maintained. On one side, nature, other side, man. So, when we discuss geography, see, the word geography, the literal meaning of geography is geo, earth, graphen, to write. So that means to write about earth is geography. This is how geography was defined. This is how geography was, the term was coined. It's a Greek term, graphen. But when we define earth, when we describe Earth, we not only describe the surfaces on Earth, landforms on the Earth. We do not just define mountains, plateaus, plains, drainage system and so on, but also define the human aspect, also define settlements on those mountains, plateaus, agriculture that is practiced in those mountain plateaus, the effect of climate on humans, and so on. So eventually, the definition of geography becomes the study of interrelation, interaction between nature and man. In nature, we have already focused on the syllabus part, nature, that includes geomorphology, lithosphere, atmosphere, and hydrosphere. So different aspects of hydrosphere like ocean currents. How do ocean currents help affect human life? And I can tell you, when we discuss ocean currents, you will understand that it is the warm ocean currents in the western part of Europe that makes their ports ice free. It is the cold current that is flowing in the western part of South America and makes this the driest desert called as Atacama Desert. It is the ocean currents that lead to higher rainfall in most of the eastern part of continents and leading to higher production of rice and other crops. So, same thing, monsoon. Being in India, we understand how monsoon is important for India, Indian economy, Indian agriculture. Festivals of India coincide with the onset and withdrawal of monsoon. So this is what we study in one part. Other part, man, as I already mentioned the syllabus, agriculture, industries, population, these are all related to human activities, anthropogenic activities. So the interaction between man and nature, the study of that interaction is called as geography. And if I go one step further and explain this, both forces, both interactions should be in balance with each other. If natural forces get stronger, it leads to disasters. If anthropogenic factors get stronger, it leads to disasters. So we have two types of disasters. One is natural disasters. Another is man-made disasters because of anthropogenic activities. So this is the syllabus for geography and disaster management. On one side, nature, study that nature carefully, understand in what circumstances the natural forces get stronger, study anthropogenic activities, industries, population, agriculture and so on, and study in what circumstances man forces, anthropogenic activities exceed the elastic limit of nature. That will lead us, that will give us an idea why disasters take place and what are the measures that we can take to restore this balance between man and nature. That is how we should be focusing upon. And to proceed further and to give this example of nature and man interaction, and according to me, the best example is India itself. Because India has a geological diversity, India has a climatic diversity, India has diversity in its vegetation, India has diversity in its agriculture, there is cultural diversity and so on. So best example that we can, on the basis of which we can understand the interaction of man and nature, is India. So let's take an example. All of us know something about Himalayas. One common feature that everyone knows, that these are the highest fold mountains of world. Average elevation is around 6,100 meters above the sea level. Highest fold mountains of world. And in geomorphology, you will understand the formation of Himalayas, that Indian plate colliding with Eurasian plate, and the Tethys Sea in between was compressed to form these high fold mountains. That's a matter of discussion in geography. But one thing we should understand, if it is the highest fold mountain of the world, then due to the slope it possesses, speed of the river should also be higher, because due to elevation, due to height, the potential energy that river has gets converted into higher kinetic energy and therefore leads to higher rate of erosion. So the erosion in Himalayas leads to deposition in plains. So it is not a surprise that highest fold mountains of the world, if I remove this diagram now, the highest fold mountain of the world leads to the largest depositional plains of world, called as North Indian plains. These are largest. So highest fold mountain, largest plains, maximum erosion, maximum deposition. If I add one more point here and relate, why are we studying this in geography, what we have got to do with the northern plains of India and all that. If you observe this largest agglutinational plains, what is deposited? Minerals. So this also means that the soil is the most fertile. With such a high fertility of soils, it is very obvious our first economic activity has to be agriculture. So from nature, if I add it here, from nature, Himalayan activities, erosion, northern plains, North Indian plains, and what is the human activity? Agriculture. So one example where we can relate nature affecting man and man's response to natural condition. Second example, if I add it further, along with northern plains of India and this Deccan Plateau. Now, Deccan Plateau is volcanic in origin. It's a lava flow that took place somewhere in the Cretaceous period, which we'll be discussing in the classes. Deccan Plateau plus northern plains of India gives us largest agricultural area. And the first economic activity, as I've already mentioned, we should understand now, first agricultural activity, first economic activity practiced in India will be agricultural activity. Let's go one step further. Agriculture demands labor. Always it has been labor demanding. If we exclude the recent mechanization that is taking place in India or the mechanization that took place in 19th, 20th century in Western world. Prior to that, if you see, agriculture has always been a labor demanding activity. So then, farmers have, for farmers, more children meant more hands to work. So all the agrarian countries of world, if you observe carefully, China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all these have very high population base. So agricultural activities is one of the reasons that has given us a huge population base. Obviously, the population is high because of less literacy, because of socio-religious factors, because of other factors. But if you trace back the history and you see this, agriculture has been one of the main reasons for this high base of the population. Today, our growth rate is less than growth rate of most of the countries. But absolute number is so big because we are 130 crore population. So even if it is 1% added every year, it makes 1.3 crores. So that's one of the reasons why population is high. Let's relate further. I'm just taking now agriculture to higher population and further. Labor demanding. So it is labor demanding, that's why population is high. One of the reasons. Also one thing is important, that agriculture becomes male centric activity. It demanded physical labor, it demanded physical strength. So it gradually becomes male centric activity, and eventually if you see, one of the reasons for poor sex ratio, right, because it is male centric activity. So in all the agrarian countries of the world, agrarian regions of the world, this male dominancy started developing. Right? For example, in northwestern part of India, for example in China, for example in Western world, West Asian region, where activities were primary economic activities. So now you see, what we have tried to connect is the natural phenomena, human activities. So how nature determines human activities, what are the responses that man provides to nature. This is how we approach geography. So my suggestion to all of you would be that when you write answers for physical geography, even if it is technical aspect, such as air masses, such as cyclones, such as continental rift, plate tectonics, such as the recent questions asked on ocean currents, you must add one point on the human effect. You must add one point that connects nature to man. And when you write answers for human geography, you must answer in such a way that it makes connection with it makes an interrelation with the natural activities or natural conditions. That way we can make geography simpler and more confined, more easy. And it is not only the part of GS paper 1, it is also the part of your GS General Studies paper 3, like agriculture, transport, which I have already mentioned. And in further classes, we will be focusing on first the conceptual part of geography, that is general geography. Then we will be focusing more on the Indian geography, current related topics, and resources and all, whatever is mentioned in your syllabus. Also looking for the disaster management. How disaster management, what are the different types of disasters that India experiences, and what are the management or rather the mitigation effects, mitigation process, the mitigation laws that we have taken so far, steps that government has taken to reduce the effect of disasters. Right? Thank you. So that is it. So see you next time. That's it. So see you next time when we discuss other concepts of geography. Thank you.